Hello, beautiful souls. This is Elena Fouché. I want to talk to you a little bit today about experiencing your reality and life through all your whole self, like all of the ways possible, and why that's important. So, let's talk about what happens when we don't do that. So, a lot of us are encouraged to experience reality through either our minds, if we're more mind based, or our bodies, if we're more body based. Now, the body is also thought of as intuition, or some people think of it as thinking with your heart. But I want to make a distinction between body thinking and heart thinking. I think they're fairly different. And that's a whole another video, I think, about the difference between those two. And suffice to say, most of us, as far as I can tell, are either mind-based or body-based. And I'm sure there's other ways out there. That's just how I experience it. So what happens when we experience life mostly through our mind or mostly through our body? Either way, we're basically really limiting ourselves. Even if we combine these two together, we're really limiting ourselves to just what the mind can perceive and experience and understand, or just what the body can perceive and experience and understand. And that's great. I mean, the body is an awesome tool. It's got tons of senses in it, and it's really very wise, super duper wise. And so is the mind. Like, the mind has it takes in a lot of the sensory information and it processes it, and it's this amazing tool, especially for imagination and doing all these kinds of things. Also, a brilliant tool. Yeah, both of these things are awesome tools. The problem is they're both limited, right? So the mind is limited to what it can understand, in the ways that the mind can understand things, and the body is also limited to what the body can understand and the ways that the body can understand things. I'm not going to go into the examples of those. I hope if you're one or the other, you already have a sense of that. And the problem is that, as the old sort of idea goes, and that a teacher, Robin Rice, reminded me recently, there's this old idea of we're like fish swimming in water, but we're not even aware that we're swimming in water, or if we are, we don't really understand the water. And it's this idea of like, we are swimming around in reality, right? We're walking through reality, and we don't really understand what's happening. If we're using our mind, we're making a lot of mental decisions and assumptions about what's going on in here and out here. And if we're using our body, same. We're making a lot of physical assumptions, about instinctual assumptions about what's happening in here and out there. And again, great tools, right? I mean, the assumptions that we make are amazing. Like science is a lot of mind-based stuff, and there's a lot of great assumptions that science makes, for example. So I'm not saying these ways are bad or wrong. I'm just pointing out that if you're a fish swimming in water, and it's kind of like you're only using one eye, right? You're only using your one of your two abilities to perceive things, and then you're totally missing the other side. So if you are going through life mostly depending on your mind or mostly depending on your body, you are really limiting your ability to perceive and understand the reality that you're swimming through. And the other thing is that even as you get both of these things online, so for instance, I, being very mentally based, I started understanding more and more how to use my body and my body wisdom. And even then, even as I got both of those online, I realized, whoa, wait a minute. There's also emotional intelligence. There's energetic intelligence. So there's understanding how energy works in my body. And then, of course, all of those together start bringing in spiritual intelligence. I start to, as I'm bringing more and more of my capacities online, which are already here, but it's just I need to start paying attention to them, right? I need to start weaving them all together and using all of them together. And as we do that, then we start to be able to perceive the reality that we're swimming through more and more. And when I say perceive, I don't mean like, another sense opens up. I mean, maybe that does happen. And for some people that does happen. I mean something much more much simpler. I mean that because you have more and more different ways to perceive what's going on, as you weave those together into one universal perception, like one unified perception of what's happening, you begin to understand realities as we're floating through it, right? As you're swimming through your reality, as you're walking through your day, it's much easier to understand what's happening inside and outside as you're using all the different ways that you can perceive. And if you're not doing that, what tends to happen is we tend to get really lost because we're only using this one eye. For instance, we're only using our mind for most of us, or we're only using our body for most of us. Then, where it's like we're half blind and we're just not seeing a whole lot of stuff. So it's really helpful to start putting these pieces together. And one of the beautiful things is you already have emotions. You just need to pay attention to them. You already have thoughts, just pay attention to them. You already have instincts, pay attention to them. You have energy moving through your body, so what's happening? Pay attention to it. All of this leads to kind of more heart-based knowledge as well, and I am still not great at that, so I can't explain that. But this is another thing to bring online is, your heart intelligence. People also talk about gut intelligence. Now, I think that is more instinct and body, and, mind, heart, gut. There's lots of different ways that you can pull information in and intelligence in. And really the main takeaway from, and what I am wanting to share with you is that if you are feeling lost, or you are feeling depressed, or you are feeling anxious, or you are feeling in any way narrowed down, like you don't really get what's going on and you feel kind of sad or overwhelmed or any of that, think about the possibility that one of the things that you could be doing to help yourself is to not be narrowed down to whatever kind of understanding you're using, whatever kind of perception you're using. So if you're really in your mind, start paying attention to your body, let it give you information and let that open up. There actually are things out here to be happy about. There actually are things, my body feels good today. I don't have to be so anxious. My thoughts are anxious, but my body's not anxious, right? Or we could go the other way, and if you're a more instinctual body-based person, you could think, okay, my instinct, my gut reaction to this is depression and sadness and blah, but what really are my imaginative thoughts? What kind of intellectual capacity can I bring to this to help me open up, right? And to help me understand or think about things that aren't depressing, that aren't sad, that aren't narrowing me down and making me feel lonely or anxious or whatever it is. If you are the kind of person that's starting to get into heart awareness, that's really helpful as well. And if you're not, just go for simple stuff, go for things that make sense to you. What are your emotions telling you? What's your mind telling you? What's your gut telling you? Play with it. I really had an experience recently, which I talked about in another video about, I really got sucked back into my head. I let my attention get really focused in my mental capacities, and wow, not a fun place to be. And I remembered what that's like, and I am so glad that I was able to get back out of that, and that I don't live there so much anymore. And I still go there, so I'm really thankful that I had that experience and that I can share it with you. First, man, we all have that. We all go through that, and it's possible to get out. Well, maybe you don't go through it, but a lot of people go through that, and a lot of us get stuck, and it's possible to get out. There are things to do. You do not have to stay there if you don't want to. Of course, if you're having clinical depression, if you're really far down that path, you're going to want help from other people. So go find a professional therapist of some sort or other to help you walk out of that, because you don't need to do it alone. But if you're not super far down that path, and you just want some help yourself, and you can do it yourself, just start paying attention to other parts of you and play with them and see what happens. Hope that helps. Take care, and see you next time.